She saved the person who looked down on her in her hardest moment, never imagining what would follow. That woman was the mother of a powerful man who could change everything in her life. What began with humiliation turned into a twist of fate impossible to predict. If this beautiful story of resilience and love interests you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you are watching from. Continuing. The alarm clock went off at 5 in the morning, as it always did. Maya opened her eyes even before the shrill sound filled the small bedroom she shared with her younger sister. Over the last few days, sleep had been hard to come by. Anxiety gripped her chest every time she thought about what lay ahead. This morning was different. This morning could change everything. She got up quietly, trying not to wake Jasmine, who was still fast asleep. The house was simple, a narrow 2-story row house on the south side of Chicago, in the South Shore neighborhood. The peeling walls told stories of years of rain and lack of maintenance. The cold linoleum floor chilled her bare feet, but Maya was used to it. There were worse things than a cold floor. In the tiny bathroom, she looked at herself in the foggy mirror. 26 years old, a degree in business administration from a private college that had cost her countless sleepless nights working as a telemarketer. Every tuition payment had been a battle. Every exam a miracle of concentration between shifts and an exhaustion that never truly went away. But she had made it. Against all odds, she had the diploma. And now, finally, a real chance. The interview was at 9 in the morning. Wacker Drive, one of the largest business consultancy firms in the country. Maya had sent her resume without high expectations, but the response came. First, a phone screening. Then, online tests. And finally, the invitation for an in-person interview. Strategic project assistant, fixed salary, full benefits, a 401k. Everything she needed to pull her mother out of that suffocating routine of 2 jobs and give a better life to Jasmine, who was still in high school. She put on the only professional outfit she owned, a pair of black slacks that had belonged to her mother, adjusted by Maya herself on an old sewing machine. A white blouse starched with total care the night before. Black low-heeled shoes, bought on clearance months ago, kept specifically for a moment like this. She tied her curly hair into a discreet bun. She applied a rosy lipstick that was barely there, but gave her a more professional look. She looked at herself again. She wasn't perfect, but it was the best she could do. In the kitchen, her mother was already awake. Mrs. Clara worked as a housekeeper for 3 different families during the week, and on weekends sold homemade meals to supplement their income. Her tired eyes lit up when she saw her daughter dressed up. "Everything is going to work out, my daughter. God is going to bless you today." Maya smiled, but the tightness in her chest didn't ease. She felt the weight of her mother's hope, the weight of being the first in the family to have a university degree, the weight of carrying everyone's dreams on her back. She had a quick breakfast, toast with margarine, black, strong coffee. She grabbed the document folder she had organized the night before. Resume printed on quality paper, copies of certificates, cover letter, a pen, everything checked 3 times. She left the house at 6:30. The commute to Wacker Drive would take nearly 2 hours, 3 transfers, a bus to the L train, the Red Line to State Lake, then another bus to the exact address. She had calculated everything. She had a safety margin. She would arrive at least 30 minutes early. The street was still dark. The neighborhood woke up slowly. A few workers were already heading to the bus stops. Maya walked fast, feeling the cold of the November morning. Chicago was like that. Freezing mornings and afternoons that warmed up without warning. The first bus was packed. She managed to get on, squeezed between a man smelling of cigarettes and a woman talking loudly on her phone. She held firmly onto the metal bar, balancing herself with every sudden break. The folder was pressed against her chest. She couldn't wrinkle the documents. She couldn't arrive looking disheveled. She got off at the train station. The crowd moved like a human river, each person focused on their own destination. Maya entered the car, finally finding a place to sit. She closed her eyes for a moment. She took a deep breath. She tried to calm her heart, which was beating far too fast. She thought about the interview, the questions they might ask, the answers she had rehearsed. She needed to look confident. She needed to show she was competent, that she deserved that position, that she wasn't just another desperate candidate. She left the L and took the last bus. This one was less crowded. She managed to sit near the window. She looked outside. The city was waking up, shops opening, coffee shops full, people running so as not to be late, all with their own silent battles. That was when she saw her, an elderly lady sitting a few rows ahead, grey hair tied in a low bun, simple but clean clothes, a fabric bag on her lap. The woman looked out the window with a tired expression, as if she were carrying the world on her shoulders. The bus was travelling down Michigan Avenue when it happened. A car braked sharply in front. The bus driver slammed on the brakes. The vehicle jolted violently. People grabbed onto whatever they could. Screams of shock echoed. The lady couldn't grab hold in time. She slipped from the seat and fell into the aisle with a dull thud. The sound was terrible. Maya saw everything. She saw the fragile body hit the floor. She saw the expression of pain on the woman's face. "Please, someone help me." The voice was low, trembling. The lady tried to get up, but the pain was evident. She held her arm against her chest. Her knee was bleeding slightly. The driver looked through the rearview mirror, impatient. "Ma'am, you're going to have to get off. I can't stop here. I have a schedule to keep." A few people looked. Most turned away. No one moved. No one wanted to get involved. Everyone had their own appointments, their own problems. The lady dragged herself to the door with difficulty. The driver opened it. She stepped down, staggering. She stood there alone at a busy stop near the downtown loop. Cars sped by. No one stopped. No one cared. Maya felt her chest tighten. She looked at her watch. 8:10 in the morning. She still had time, but if she got off now, if she stopped to help, she might not make it in time. She might miss the interview. She might lose everything. She looked at the lady. She saw the pain. She saw the helplessness. She saw the loneliness of someone whom no one noticed. And then something inside her spoke louder than fear, louder than urgency, louder than all the carefully laid plans. She stood up. She grabbed her folder. She pulled the cord. The driver grumbled but stopped. Maya ran off. She went back to where the lady was. The woman looked at her with suspicion. Her eyes showed fear, as if she expected yet another disappointment, another proof that the world was a cruel place. "Are you okay, ma'am? Let me help you." Maya's voice came out firm but gentle. She reached out her hand. The lady hesitated. She looked at this young black woman, well-dressed, who had come back when everyone else had moved on. "I fell. I think I hurt my arm. I can't move properly." Maya knelt down. She examined the lady carefully. The arm looked swollen. Her knee was still bleeding. She needed medical attention. "I'm going to take you to a hospital. Don't worry, everything will be fine." "But miss, you don't have to. I don't want to get in the way. You must have important things to do." Maya looked at her watch again. 8:20. The interview was at 9. The nearest hospital was in the opposite direction. There wouldn't be time. It was impossible to do both. She closed her eyes for a second. She thought of her mother, the bills, the opportunity that was slipping through her fingers. She thought of everything she had fought for to get here. But she looked at the lady again. She saw a mother. She saw someone who had also fought her whole life, someone who deserved dignity, who deserved to be seen. The decision was made. There was no going back. "Nothing is more important than you right now. Come, I'll help you walk." She supported the lady carefully. The woman's body was trembling. Maya felt the weight of that fragility. They began to walk slowly. With every step, the lady's pain was visible. With every step, Maya felt the opportunity drifting away. She managed to hail a taxi. She helped the lady inside. She gave the address of the nearest general hospital. The driver looked with suspicion, but drove on. During the ride, the lady cried silently. Maya held her hand. She said nothing. She just stayed there, present, showing her she wasn't alone. They arrived at the hospital. It was chaotic. Maya helped the lady out of the taxi. She paid for the fare with the money she had set aside for lunch. They went into the reception. They explained the situation. They filled out forms. They waited. Maya looked at her phone. 8:50. The interview would start in 10 minutes. There was no longer any possibility. It was over. The chance was lost. But as she looked at the lady, who was finally being attended to, who finally had someone taking care of her, Maya felt no regret. She felt peace, a strange peace that made no sense given everything she had lost. She had chosen, and she would choose again. The hours dragged on. The lady was taken for exams. Maya stayed in the waiting room. Gazes crossed her. Some people whispered. A well-dressed young woman accompanying an unknown elderly lady. It made no sense to those watching from the outside. But to Maya, it made all the sense in the world. When the lady returned with her arm in a sling and her knee bandaged, she looked at Maya with tears in her eyes. "Why did you do this? You don't even know me." Maya smiled, a tired but true smile. "Because you deserved it. Simple as that." And in that moment, without knowing it, Maya had planted the seed of something much greater than any job interview. Something that would change her life in a way she could never imagine. The clock on the waiting room wall marked noon when the lady finally left the treatment room. Maya had spent the last few hours there, sitting in an uncomfortable blue plastic chair, watching the coming and going of people. Hurried doctors, tired nurses, distraught families, each carrying their own pain, their own urgency. The lady walked slowly, supported by a nurse. Her right arm was immobilized in a sling, her knee carefully bandaged. Her face showed relief mixed with exhaustion. When her eyes found Maya, who stood up immediately, an expression of surprise took over her features. "You're still here?" Her voice broke. Maya approached, helping the nurse settle the lady into a more comfortable chair. "Of course I am. I wasn't going to leave you alone." The nurse handed over a prescription and some instructions. Rest, pain medication, a follow-up in a week. The lady held the papers with her free hand, but her fingers trembled. Maya noticed and reached out. "Let me keep these for you. It'll be easier." The lady didn't resist. She handed over the documents, and then, as if a dam had burst, she began to cry. It wasn't a loud or dramatic cry. It was silent, burdened by years of loneliness and neglect. "I don't even know how to thank you, my child. It's been so long since someone cared." Maya sat down beside her. She didn't know exactly what to say. She just stayed there, present, letting the woman unburden herself. "What is your name, ma'am?" "Eleanor. My name is Eleanor Sterling, and yours?" Maya Vance." Eleanor wiped her tears with her free hand. She took a deep breath, trying to compose herself. She looked at Maya with a mixture of gratitude and curiosity. "You seemed so rushed when you got on that bus, so focused, and yet you came back. Why?" Maya thought for a moment. How to explain something she didn't even fully understand herself. How to put into words a decision that had come from the heart, not from reason. "Because I couldn't live with myself if I had just moved on. There are things we can't ignore, you know. You needed help. I could help. It was as simple as that." Eleanor smiled, a sad but true smile. "Simple for you, perhaps, but it's not simple for most people. I spent my whole life teaching in public schools on the South Side, 40 years of teaching. I worked in Roseland, in Austin, in Little Village. I saw a lot of people in need, a lot of hungry children, a lot of families struggling to survive. And do you know what I learned? That people are increasingly alone, increasingly invisible." Eleanor's voice carried a painful wisdom. Maya felt a pang in her chest. She recognized in that woman a bit of her own story, a bit of the story of so many people she knew. "Do you live alone, Eleanor?" "I do. My husband passed away 10 years ago. My son lives far away, always very busy with work. We barely speak. He's an important man, you know, a successful businessman, lives in a huge apartment on the Gold Coast. But it's as if he lives on another planet." There was hurt in her voice, but also understanding. Eleanor didn't blame her son. She just noted the distance that had grown between them. "Does he know you're here?" Eleanor shook her head. "I didn't want to bother him. He has important meetings, commitments. I didn't want to be another problem." Maya frowned. "Mrs. Eleanor, with all due respect, you are not a problem. You are his mother. He needs to know. Let me call him?" Eleanor hesitated, but something in Maya's determined gaze convinced her. She searched for her phone in her bag with difficulty. Maya helped. She found the old device with large buttons. She looked for the contact saved as Robert. She dialed. She put it on speaker so Eleanor could hear. It rang 3 times before someone answered. "Hello, Mom, did something happen?" The voice was masculine, deep, with a tone of concern mixed with impatience. Sound of voices in the background. He was somewhere busy. "Robert, I had a small accident. I'm at Chicago General Hospital, but everything is fine. You don't need to worry." "What do you mean an accident? What happened? Are you okay?" The impatience had given way to genuine concern. "I fell on the bus, hurt my arm and knee, but a very kind young lady helped me. Everything is under control." "Mom, I'm coming there now. Don't leave." The call ended. Eleanor looked at Maya with an expression of guilt. "I didn't want to take him away from work." "Mrs. Eleanor, work can wait. You can't." 40 minutes passed. Maya bought water and crackers from a machine for the both of them. They talked. Eleanor told her about her life as a teacher, about the students she had helped, about the difficulties of teaching in schools without infrastructure, about the dedication she always had, even when no one recognized it. Maya, in turn, talked about her mother, about Jasmine, about the college degree that had cost so much effort, and then, inevitably, about the interview she had missed. "You missed a job interview because of me." Eleanor's voice came out in a horrified whisper. "It wasn't because of you, it was my choice, and I would choose it again. But my child, this opportunity was important to you. I can't accept that you sacrificed that for me." Maya took Eleanor's hand gently. "Mrs. Eleanor, you taught me something today. You reminded me that there are things more important than any job. There are values that cannot be negotiated. If I had stayed on that bus, if I had ignored you, I would have made the interview. But I would have lost something much more precious. I would have lost my humanity." Before Eleanor could respond, a masculine voice interrupted. "Mom." A tall man, wearing an impeccable navy blue suit, crossed the waiting room in long strides. Robert Sterling was around 45 years old, grey hair at the temples, an elegant bearing, the expression of someone used to being in control of everything. But when he got close to Eleanor, when he saw the immobilized arm and the bandaged knee, all that composure fell away. He knelt in front of his mother, holding her free hand carefully. "Mom, what happened? How are you?" "I'm fine, son. It was just a scare. This young lady here took care of me. If it wasn't for her, I don't know what would have happened." Robert looked at Maya for the first time. His eyes quickly swept over her professional clothes, the document folder beside the chair, the tired but firm face of the young woman. He stood up and extended his hand. "Robert Sterling, thank you very much for helping my mother." Maya shook his hand. The grip was firm, professional. "Maya Vance, no need to thank me. Anyone would have done the same." Robert gave a half smile, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Unfortunately, Miss Vance, not everyone would have. Do you have any idea what you did?" "I do. I did what was right." He looked at her more closely. There was something about this young woman that intrigued him, a firmness, a dignity that money couldn't buy. "I would like to reward you for what you did. Please tell me how much I can pay you." The change in Maya's expression was immediate. Her eyes, which were soft before, turned hard. "I'm not for sale, Mr. Sterling. I didn't help your mother expecting payment. I helped because it was the right thing to do." Robert blinked, surprised by the reaction. He wasn't used to being refused. "I didn't mean to offend. I just want to show my gratitude." "Your gratitude is shown. Now take good care of your mother. That's all she needs." Maya grabbed her folder. She looked at Eleanor one last time. The lady had tears in her eyes. "Thank you, my child. May God always bless you." Maya smiled. "Stay well, Mrs. Eleanor, and don't forget to take your medicine properly." She turned to leave. Robert followed her with his gaze. Something about that girl left him restless. Something he couldn't name. "Wait, at least let me get your number. My mother will want to talk to you." Maya hesitated, but she ended up agreeing. She dictated the number. Robert saved it in his phone. When she left the hospital, Robert stood still, looking at the door where she had disappeared. Eleanor watched her son with a discreet smile. "She's special, isn't she?" Robert shook his head, returning to reality. Different, very different. Hours later, already in his office on Wacker Drive, Robert was reviewing some documents when his assistant entered. "Mr. Sterling, HR sent the report for today's interviews. There was one absence. A candidate didn't show up." Robert made a dismissive gesture. "Normal, it happens." The assistant placed a folder on the desk. "Yes, but this candidate had a very interesting profile. Impeccable resume. Passed all previous stages with excellent marks. We were looking forward to meeting her in person." Out of curiosity, Robert opened the folder. He began to read the resume, and then his heart stopped for a second. There in the photo in the corner was Maya Vance's face. Address, South Shore. Education, Business Administration. Position, Strategic Project Assistant. Interview time, 9 o'clock in the morning. Robert looked at the clock. He calculated quickly. 9 in the morning. The exact time Maya was at a hospital taking care of an unknown elderly lady. A lady who, by chance, was his mother. He closed the folder slowly. He stared at that resume for long minutes. His mind worked fast, connecting the dots. That girl had given up her dream interview to help his mother. She had lost the chance of a lifetime, and when he offered money, she refused. Not out of pride, but out of principle. Robert Sterling had built an empire based on meritocracy and competence. But in that moment, he realized something he had forgotten over the years. That character was worth more than any resume. That integrity wasn't taught in any university. He picked up the phone. He called HR. "I want you to reschedule Maya Vance's interview, and I want to be present personally." On the other end of the line, surprised silence. Robert never participated in interviews for entry-level positions. "Sir, you heard me. Reschedule and let me know when she confirms." He hung up. He stood looking out the huge window overlooking the city. Down there, thousands of people went about their lives, each with their own battles, each invisible to the eyes of others. But Maya Vance would no longer be invisible, not to him, because sometimes destiny has plans bigger than any human planning. And sometimes doing the right thing opens doors that no strategy ever could. Maya arrived home just as the sun was hiding behind the buildings of the south side. Her body was tired, but her mind was still buzzing with everything that had happened. She climbed the stairs of the house slowly, feeling the weight of every step. When she opened the door, she found her mother and Jasmine sitting at the kitchen table. Mrs. Clara stood up immediately, her face marked by worry. "Maya, thank God, I tried to call you 1,000 times. What happened? How was the interview?" Maya placed her folder on the table. She pulled out a chair. She sat down with a long sigh. Jasmine, who was 15 and had the same determined look as her older sister, watched in silence. "I didn't go to the interview, Mum." The silence that followed was heavy. Mrs. Clara blinked several times, as if she hadn't understood correctly. "What do you mean you didn't go? But you left so early. You were so prepared." Maya told them everything. The bus, Mrs. Eleanor's fall, the indifference of the people, the decision to go back, the hospital, the hours of waiting, the meeting with Robert. She spoke slowly, choosing her words carefully. When she finished, she expected to see disappointment on her mother's face. She expected to hear that she had been irresponsible, that she had thrown away a unique chance. But that wasn't what happened. Mrs. Clara approached. She placed her hands on her daughter's shoulders. Her eyes were misty. "My daughter, I raised you to be a woman of character, to know the difference between right and wrong, and you did exactly what I would have done. Opportunities come and go, but the person we are, that stays forever." Jasmine stood up and hugged her sister from behind. "You're my hero, Maya. You always have been." Maya felt the tears finally flow. She had held them in all day. She had stayed strong in front of Mrs. Eleanor, in front of Robert. But there, in the comfort of her family, she could be vulnerable. "I just wanted so much to give you guys a better life. I'm tired of seeing Mum kill herself working. Tired of seeing you in old clothes, Jasmine. This was our chance. And there will be other chances, honey. God will take care of us. He always has." That night, Maya slept heavily. The kind of sleep of someone with a clear conscience, even if the future was uncertain. The phone rang the next morning. Maya was helping her mother hang clothes on the line when she heard the sound. She ran inside. Unknown number. "Hello? Miss Maya Vance?" It was a feminine voice, professional and polite. "Yes, this is she. My name is Sarah. I'm from the Human Resources Department at Sterling Consulting. I'm calling to inform you that Mr. Robert Sterling would like to reschedule your interview. Would you be available tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning?" Maya felt her heart race. She looked at her mother, who had stopped hanging clothes and was watching her intently. Yes, I'm available." "Perfect. We'll be expecting you. The address is the same, Wacker Drive, Suite 1400, 15th floor." Thank you so much." She hung up. She stood there holding the phone, trying to process what had just happened. Mrs. Clara approached. Was it the company? Maya nodded, still in shock. They want to reschedule the interview for tomorrow. Mrs. Clara smiled, a wide smile full of faith. Didn't I tell you? God takes care. Maya spent the rest of the day preparing. She revised her resume. She studied the company. She researched Robert Sterling. She discovered he had built Sterling Consulting from scratch. He was known for being demanding and fair, but also relentless with incompetence. The company had over 200 employees and served major corporations. She slept little. The anxiety returned in force, but this time it came mixed with something different. A feeling that this was more than just an interview. It was a second chance. And second chances didn't always appear. The next morning she followed the same ritual. Woke up early, showered, put on the same professional clothes, tied her hair. But this time, when she looked in the mirror, she saw something different. She saw a woman who had proven her value in a way no diploma ever could. The trip was smooth. She arrived 30 minutes early. The building was imposing, glass and steel, a modern lobby with security and electronic turnstiles. She went up to the 15th floor. The elevator doors opened to a wide space with minimalist decor, shades of grey and white, designer furniture. A blonde receptionist in an impeccable suit greeted her with a professional smile. Maya Vance? Yes. Please wait a moment. Mr. Sterling will see you shortly. Maya sat in a comfortable armchair. She looked around. Abstract paintings on the walls, business magazines on the coffee table. Everything there breathed success and sophistication. 15 minutes later, a door opened. Robert appeared wearing a grey suit. His face was serious, but his gaze had something different, something softer than at the hospital. Miss Vance, please come in. Maya followed him down a corridor with glass offices. She could see people working, meetings happening, computers on, constant movement. They entered a conference room, a large wooden table, ergonomic chairs, a privileged view of the city. Robert pointed to a chair. He sat across from her. Before we begin, I need to apologize. Maya blinked, surprised. Apologize? Robert joined his hands on the table. Yesterday, when I offered money, I didn't mean to disrespect you, but you were right to put me in my place. Sometimes those with money think they can buy everything, even gratitude. You reminded me that there are things that have no price. Maya relaxed a bit. I understand. You just wanted to show gratitude, but I really don't need payment. What I did for your mother was something anyone should do. That's where you're wrong, Miss Vance. Most people wouldn't. And that led me to make an interesting discovery yesterday afternoon. He opened a folder. He placed her resume on the table. You missed the interview because you were taking care of my mother. Maya lowered her gaze. Yes, and even so, when I offered to reward you, you refused. You didn't mention the interview. You didn't try to use the situation to your advantage. It wouldn't have been right. Robert leaned forward. Exactly. And that's why you are here. Not because I owe you a favor, but because you demonstrated something I rarely see. Genuine integrity. Now, show me if you also have the competence to match. The interview lasted 2 hours. Robert asked difficult questions about project management, about conflict resolution, about how she would deal with tight deadlines and limited resources. Maya answered everything clearly. She used examples from college, from the jobs she had held, from situations she had faced. Robert observed every detail, the way she thought, how she articulated her ideas, how she maintained calm under pressure. When it was over, he closed his notebook. You're hired. You can start on Monday. Maya felt her legs go weak. Hired? Just like that? Robert smiled slightly. Just like that. You passed all the previous stages with excellent marks. This interview only confirmed what I already knew. You are exactly the type of professional this company needs. Maya felt her eyes water, but she controlled herself. It was a professional environment. She needed to maintain her composure. Thank you, Mr. Sterling. You won't regret it. I hope not. And Maya, one thing. In here, you will face resistance. Some people will question your hiring. They'll say you only got it because I wanted it. They'll try to disqualify you, prove them wrong. Maya lifted her chin. Consider it done. On Monday, Maya arrived at 8 in the morning. She was greeted by the HR manager, Sarah, who took her to meet the team. The Strategic Projects Department had 8 people, 3 men, 5 women, all well-dressed, all with degrees from renowned universities hanging on the walls of their offices. The coordinator was Fiona Ashford, a woman of 35, thin with an air of superiority that was clear in every movement. When Sarah introduced Maya, Fiona examined her from head to toe with a critical look. "So you're the famous Maya, Robert's protégé?" The tone was acidic. Maya kept her expression neutral. "I'm the new project assistant. It's a pleasure to meet you." Fiona didn't offer her hand. She just pointed to an empty desk in the corner of the room. "That's your station. Computer, phone, basic materials. Any questions, ask Marcus. He's the senior assistant." Marcus was a black man in his 40s, with glasses and a kind smile. He was the only one who stood up to greet Maya properly. "Welcome. Anything you need, just call." "Thank you." The first few days were difficult. Maya noticed the looks, the conversations that stopped when she approached, the whispered comments. But she kept her head high. She did her work with attention. She arrived early. She left late. She revised everything 3 times before handing it in. Fiona tried to destabilize her constantly. She gave her impossible deadlines, demanded detailed reports on irrelevant things, held meetings without notice, and then complained that Maya hadn't attended. But Maya didn't let it get to her. She fulfilled every task. She overcame every obstacle. And gradually she began to show her value. In an important meeting, during a presentation of a project for a major client, the financial coordinator made a serious error in the calculations. Maya noticed it immediately. She hesitated for a second. Interrupting a meeting of that level could be seen as bad form, but letting the error pass would be worse. "Excuse me." All heads turned to her. Fiona glared at her. "Sorry for the interruption, but I believe there's an error in the figures presented. The profit margin calculation isn't considering the indirect costs. If the client accepts this proposal, we will take a loss." The financial coordinator turned red. "I'm sure everything is correct." Maya stood up. She went to the projection screen. She pointed to the numbers. "Here, the operational costs. Here, the initial investments. If we add everything up and apply the proposed margin, the result is negative by $300,000. Absolute silence. Robert, who was present, grabbed a calculator. He redid the math. He looked at the coordinator. "She's right." The client, a man in his 50s representing a multinational, leaned forward with interest. "Impressive. How long have you been with the company, Maya?" 3 weeks, sir." He smiled. "Robert, you have a gem here. Take good care of her." The meeting was suspended to redo the numbers. Later in the hallway, Robert called Maya. "Good work. You just saved the company $300,000 and your reputation." Maya felt her chest swell with pride, but she remained humble. "I just did my job." She kept doing it, every day, and gradually, despite all the resistance, she began to win her space, because true talent cannot be hidden, and character eventually always reveals itself. The following months were of intense growth. Maya absorbed knowledge like a sponge. Every project was an opportunity to learn, every challenge a chance to prove her worth. She woke up at 5 in the morning, took the first bus, and was often the last to leave the office. She took work home. She studied cases, she read reports, she wanted to be impeccable. Her relationship with Eleanor also grew closer. On Saturdays, when she wasn't working, Maya would visit her at the apartment in the Hyde Park area where the lady lived. It was a simple place, but cozy, full of books and old photographs. Eleanor always prepared coffee and cake. They talked for hours, about life, about dreams, about the difficulties they both knew so well. "You remind me of myself when I was young, you know. That determination, that will to make a difference." Eleanor smiled as she served more coffee. "The difference is that you made it, 40 years teaching. How many lives did you transform?" "Some, I hope. But I also lost many. Brilliant kids who gave up because life was too hard. Boys and girls who had potential but no opportunity." Eleanor's voice grew heavy when she spoke of those she couldn't save. "That's why what you're doing is so important, Maya. You're paving the way, showing that it's possible. One day you'll be able to do for other people what no one did for you." Maya kept those words in her heart. They were her motivation on hard days. And hard days weren't lacking. Fiona intensified her attempts to sabotage Maya's work. She began excluding her from important meetings. She omitted crucial information. She distributed the most interesting projects to other assistants, leaving Maya with only the manual and repetitive tasks. But Maya didn't complain. She did everything with excellence. And when she had free time, she offered to help her colleagues. That was how she won the trust of Marcus, the senior assistant. "You don't have to do this, you know. It's not your obligation to help everyone." Marcus spoke while Maya revised a report of his, pointing out small inconsistencies. "I know, but I like to help and I learn more this way." Marcus smiled. He had noticed from the start that Maya was different. She didn't have that petty competitiveness that dominated the corporate environment. She wanted to grow, yes, but not by stepping on others. "So you're going to go far, Maya, I'm sure of it." Her opportunity to shine came unexpectedly. The company had just closed a contract with a grocery chain that wanted to expand into suburban Illinois. The project was large, complex, involving market analysis, logistics, and financial viability. Fiona assigned a team of 5 people. Maya was not included. But a week before the final presentation, one of the project coordinators had to take medical leave. The work was incomplete. Fiona panicked. She needed someone to take over that part urgently, but all the other assistants were already overloaded. It was Marcus who suggested it. "Maya can do it. She's fast and detail-oriented." Fiona made a face. "She barely has experience. But we don't have another option, and she already saved a project before, remember." Fiona had no choice. She called Maya into her office, threw a pile of documents on the table. "You have 3 days to finish this viability analysis. I need precise numbers, clear charts, and well-founded conclusions. If you mess up, the whole project goes down the drain." The tone was a threat. Fiona wanted Maya to fail. She wanted to prove she didn't deserve to be there. Maya took the documents. She looked at the volume of work. It was easily 20 hours of concentrated analysis. "I'll do it." She spent the next 72 hours practically without sleep. She built spreadsheets. She cross-referenced data. She made projections. She consulted experts. She redid calculations. She checked and rechecked every number. On the morning of the presentation, she handed in the complete report. Fiona read it with a critical eye, looking for errors. She found none. Worse, the work was impeccable, better even than she expected. The presentation to the client was a success. The president of the grocery chain was particularly impressed with the viability analysis. "Who did this part of the project?" Fiona hesitated, but Robert, who was also present, answered first. "That was Maya Vance, our project assistant." The president nodded approvingly. "Exceptional work. Congratulations, Miss Vance." Maya thanked him with a discreet smile, but inside her heart was exploding with pride. She had proven once again that she deserved to be there. After the meeting, Robert called her into his office. It was the first time they had talked alone since the interview. "Sit down." Maya sat, her hands sweaty. Robert leaned back in his chair, fingers interlaced. "You've been doing extraordinary work. I'm impressed." "Thank you, Mr. Sterling. But I also notice the resistance you face. I'm not blind. I know Fiona doesn't make your life easy." Maya didn't know what to say. She didn't want to sound like she was complaining. "I can handle it." "I'm sure you can. But I want you to know something. You're not here for charity. You're not here because you helped my mother. You're here because you're competent. And competence always finds its place." He opened a drawer. He took out an envelope. "This is a promotion and a salary increase. You're moving from assistant to junior analyst. You'll coordinate your own small projects. You'll have more responsibility and more autonomy." Maya was speechless. She looked at the envelope as if it were surreal. "But I've only been here 4 months. And you've already done more than many do in years. Accept it. You deserve it." Maya took the envelope with trembling hands. "Thank you. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. Just keep doing what you've been doing." When Maya left the office, she ran into Fiona in the hallway. The coordinator's look was pure venom. "Congratulations on the promotion. Must be nice to have protection, right?" Maya stopped. She turned. She looked Fiona in the eyes firmly. "I don't have protection, Fiona. I have competence and hard work. Maybe you should try it." She turned her back and walked away. leaving Fiona gaping in the hallway. The news of the promotion spread quickly. Some colleagues congratulated her genuinely. Others just whispered in corners. Maya didn't care. She had bigger goals. With the new salary, she managed to rent a small apartment for her mother and her sister. Nothing luxurious, but it was theirs. Mrs. Clara was able to quit one of her 3 jobs. Jasmine got a new computer for her studies. For the first time in years, the Vance family had a bit of stability. But life never stays stable for long, especially when there are people who don't want to see you shine. Fiona began to orchestrate something more serious. In meetings with the directors, she planted doubts about Maya. She suggested she was receiving preferential treatment. She hinted that her successes were the result of insider information. She created a narrative where Maya was an opportunist, using her relationship with Robert to climb the ladder. The strategy was subtle but effective. Soon other managers began to question, why was such a new employee rising so fast? Was it fair to those who had been with the company longer? Robert began to receive questions. In a board meeting, the subject was raised directly. "Robert, we need to talk about the recent promotions, specifically about Maya Vance." The speaker was Richard Montgomery, the CFO, a man in his 50s, conservative who didn't like change. "What about her?" "Look, no one is questioning your leadership competence, but there's a perception that this employee is receiving differentiated treatment, and that's creating discomfort in the team." Robert crossed his arms. "Discomfort for whom?" "From several managers. There's a feeling that the rules aren't the same for everyone." Robert took a deep breath. He knew exactly what was happening. Fiona had done her job well. Maya was promoted because she deserves it. Her results speak for themselves. She saved a project that would have cost us $300,000. She finished a complex analysis in 72 hours that would take weeks for others. She has initiative, intelligence, and impeccable work ethics. But Richard didn't back down. "I understand, but perception matters as much as facts. If the team feels there's favoritism, it affects morale. We need to be cautious." Robert realized he was cornered. If he insisted too much on defending Maya, he would confirm the suspicions. If he backed down, he would be unfair to her. "I'll think about it." But he didn't have much time to think, because the following week something happened that would put Maya in an even more difficult situation. An important client, a tech company that represented 15% of Sterling Consulting's annual revenue, threatened to break their contract. They claimed that confidential information about their market strategies had been leaked to a competitor. The internal investigation began immediately. All employees who had access to that information were questioned, and among them was Maya. She had worked on a small peripheral report for that project. When she was called to testify, Maya didn't understand the gravity of the situation. She answered all questions truthfully. She explained exactly what she had done, when she had accessed the files, and who she had shared information with. But 2 days later, Fiona appeared with supposed evidence. System logs showed that Maya's computer had accessed confidential files after working hours. Furthermore, there were emails sent from her address to an unknown domain with heavy attachments. Maya was summoned to a meeting with Robert and the legal department. When she entered the room and saw everyone's serious expressions, she knew she was in trouble. "Miss Vance, we have evidence that you accessed confidential files without authorization and possibly shared them with third parties. What do you have to say?" Maya felt the floor vanish. She looked at Robert, searching for some sign of support, but he maintained a neutral, professional expression. "I never did that. I never accessed anything that wasn't related to my work, and I would never share confidential information." The lawyer placed a folder on the table. "The system logs say otherwise." Maya looked at the papers. She saw her login, she saw the times, she saw the files, but she didn't recognize any of it. "That wasn't me. Someone must have used my credentials." Fiona, who was present, let out a bitter laugh. "How convenient. There's always an excuse." Maya faced her. "It's not an excuse, it's the truth, and I'm going to prove it." But how? How would she prove something she hadn't done? How would she prove her innocence when all the evidence seemed to point to her? It was the biggest crisis she had faced since joining the company, and this time it wouldn't be so easy to get out. Maya was temporarily suspended while the investigation proceeded. She went home in a state of shock. When she told her mother what had happened, Mrs. Clara hugged her tightly. "The truth always comes out, my daughter. Always." But Maya couldn't just wait for the truth to appear on its own. She needed to act. That same night she called Marcus. He was the only person at the company she trusted fully. "Marcus, I need your help." He listened to everything in silence. When she finished, he sighed deeply. "Maya, I know you wouldn't do this, but the evidence is heavy. We need something concrete." "I know. That's why I need you to help me access the full system logs, not just the ones they showed in the meeting. Everything. Every login, every time, every movement." "That could cost me my job." "I know. And I won't be mad if you say no, but you're my only hope." Silence on the other end. Then Marcus took a deep breath. "Meet me tomorrow morning at the coffee shop around the corner from the office. 7 a.m. before everyone arrives." "Thank you, Marcus, truly." "Don't thank me yet. Let's see what we can find." Maya spent the night awake. At 6 in the morning she was already up. She showered, dressed, and left. She arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early. She ordered a black coffee and waited, her hands shaking slightly. Marcus arrived punctually. He brought a discreet folder. He sat across from her, looking around to make sure no one they knew was nearby. "I managed to get a copy of the full logs, but we need to analyze this fast. If someone finds out, we're screwed." They opened Maya's laptop. They began to examine the technical records. There were hundreds of pages of logs, times, IPs, accesses, modifications. Maya's eyes were tired, but she maintained absolute focus. She was looking for something, anything that didn't make sense. It was Marcus who found the first clue. "Wait, look at this." He pointed to a specific line. Maya's login had accessed the confidential files at 11 at night on a Tuesday, but right below there was another record. The same login had accessed the system at 11:10 that same night, but from a different IP address. That's strange. You can't be in two places at once. Maya felt her heart race, and I wasn't in either of them. That Tuesday I had left early because my sister had a fever. I got home at 7 p.m. and didn't leave again. Marcus typed quickly. "Can you prove that?" Maya thought. Then she remembered. "Yes, I ordered medicine delivery for Jasmine. There must be a record in the app with the time and address." She grabbed her phone, opened the order history. There it was. Order at 7:45, delivered at 8:15, at her home address on the south side. "That proves you weren't near the office, but it still doesn't explain how your login was used." Marcus continued investigating. He combed through every line of those logs, and then he found something that changed everything. "Maya, look at the IP where the suspicious accesses came from." She looked. It was an internal company address, but it wasn't from her workstation. It was from another room. Marcus cross-referenced the IP with the company's network map. "This machine is in the coordinators room. It's the backup computer kept in the locked cabinet." "Who has access to that cabinet?" "Only the coordinators, and Fiona is the one who uses that space the most." The two looked at each other. The same conclusion arrived simultaneously. "She sabotaged me." Marcus shook his head, incredulous. "But why? Just because you're competent?" Maya thought. And then she understood. It wasn't just about competence, it was about threat. Fiona saw her as a rival, someone who could eventually take her place, and she wasn't willing to allow that. "We need to show this to Robert." But Marcus hesitated. "Fiona will deny it. She'll say anyone could have accessed that computer. We need more proof, something irrefutable." Maya thought quickly. Then she had an idea. "The emails, the ones sent from my login, can you get the full metadata?" Marcus entered the email system. With the administrator credentials he temporarily had, he managed to access deeper information. And there it was. The suspicious emails had been sent, but the metadata showed something interesting. The digital signature didn't match the pattern of Maya's real messages. More importantly, there was a technical detail that couldn't be faked. The email client used to send the messages was different. Maya always used webmail. The suspicious messages had been sent through a desktop client configured only on specific computers, and one of them was precisely that backup computer in the coordinators room. We got her. Marcus saved everything. He compiled the evidence into a detailed report. Maya checked every line, every piece of data, every conclusion. It was all there, irrefutable. At 9 in the morning, Maya sent an email to Robert requesting an urgent meeting. She attached the report. 30 minutes later, she received a reply. 2 p.m., main conference room. Robert, the legal department, HR, and Fiona would be present. Maya used the next few hours to prepare. She rehearsed every argument. She reviewed every piece of evidence. There could be no room for error. When she arrived at the company at 1:40, she felt the looks, some of pity, others of curiosity, some of satisfaction, as if they were happy to see someone who had risen fast now falling. She entered the conference room. Robert was sitting at the head of the table. His face was a professional mask. The company's lawyer, Ms. Rachel, was beside him. The HR manager, Sarah, on the other side. And Fiona, in the opposite corner, with the expression of someone who had already won. "Miss Vance, you requested this meeting. Do you have something to present?" Robert's voice was cold, neutral, but Maya knew the man well enough to realize he wanted her to defend herself. He wanted to believe in her. "I do. I have proof that I did not commit the information leak. And more, I have proof of who actually did." Fiona laughed, a fake and sharp sound. "Of course. The victim is now going to accuse someone else. How convenient." Maya ignored her. She connected her laptop to the projector. She began the presentation. She showed the access logs. She explained the inconsistencies in the times. She presented the proof of the delivery that placed her at home at the time of the suspicious accesses. Then, she revealed the IP address where the accesses actually originated. And finally, the metadata of the emails that proved they had been sent from a computer different from hers. Fiona turned pale. She tried to interrupt several times, but Robert silenced her with a gesture. When Maya finished, the silence in the room was absolute. The lawyer examined the documents carefully. The HR manager was making notes frantically. Robert looked fixedly at Fiona. "Do you have anything to say, Fiona?" His voice was icy, dangerous. Fiona tried to recover her composure. "This proves nothing. Anyone could have accessed that computer. I wasn't even in the office that day." But Maya was prepared. She opened another file. "Actually, you were. The lobby security system records your entry at 10:30 p.m. You left at 12:15 a.m. The accesses to the confidential files happened at 11:10, and the emails were sent at 11:40, all within the period you were here alone, after hours." Fiona stood up abruptly. "This is ridiculous. You're making all this up to save yourself." But her voice trembled. Robert stood up as well. His presence dominated the room. "Miss Ashford, I strongly suggest you sit down and cooperate. These are serious accusations. If proven, they constitute not only a breach of contract, but also crimes that could lead to legal proceedings." Fiona looked around like a cornered animal. Then something in her broke. She sat back down, her face in her hands. "I just wanted to protect my position. She was rising too fast. Everyone was talking about her. Robert only talked about her. I've worked here for 8 years. 8 years. And she arrives and in 4 months is doing what took me years to achieve." The confession came through sobs. It wasn't even an attempt to justify herself. It was just the outburst of someone who had been consumed by envy and fear. "So you admit you forged evidence to frame Miss Vance?" The lawyer asked the question in a firm voice, already preparing the lawsuit. Fiona just shook her head, defeated. Robert took a deep breath. He looked at Maya. And for the first time since the start of the meeting, there was emotion in his eyes. Respect, admiration, and a silent request for forgiveness. "Miss Ashford, you are fired for cause. The company's lawyer will guide you on the legal procedures. You may leave." Fiona stood up like an automaton. She looked at Maya one last time. There was no more anger, only defeat and shame. She left the room without saying another word. Robert turned to Maya. "Miss Vance, on behalf of the company, I apologize for what you went through. Your technical skills are unquestionable, but what you demonstrated today goes beyond that. You showed analytical capacity, resilience, and the courage to face adversity. These are the qualities that make a true leader." He paused. He looked at the HR manager. "Sarah, prepare the documentation. Maya Vance is promoted to senior analyst, and I want her to temporarily take over project coordination while we recruit someone to replace Fiona." Maya felt the tears coming, but she held them back. It was still a professional environment, but she allowed herself a smile. "Thank you, Mr. Sterling. I won't let you down." "I know you won't." When she left that room, Maya felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She had faced the biggest storm of her career, and she hadn't just survived, she had won. Not with luck, not with protection, but with intelligence, hard work, and above all, by keeping her integrity intact. Marcus was waiting for her in the hallway. When he saw her, he smiled. "And?" Maya smiled back. Justice was done. He hugged her, a hug from a friend, an ally, from someone who knew how much that had cost. "You were incredible in there." "We were. I couldn't have done it without you." That night, Maya went home. She told her mother and Jasmine everything. The three of them cried together. They weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of relief, of gratitude, of victory. Mrs. Clara held her daughter's face between her hands. "I always knew you were strong. But today you showed me you are more than strong, you are just, and that is worth more than any position." Maya hugged her mother. She felt the unconditional love of that woman who had sacrificed everything for her, and she promised herself she would make it worth it. Every sacrifice, every difficulty, every tear. Because the journey wasn't over yet. In fact, it was just beginning. 6 months later, Sterling Consulting had a different face. Under Maya's coordination, the Strategic Projects Department didn't just maintain its excellence, it surpassed it. The numbers spoke for themselves. A 23% increase in client satisfaction, a 15% reduction in delivery times, and most importantly, a cohesive, motivated team where people helped each other instead of competing destructively. Maya had implemented subtle but profound changes. She created a mentorship system where more experienced analysts guided the new ones. She established weekly feedback meetings where everyone could speak openly about challenges and suggestions. And above all, she led by example. She arrived early, left late, but never asked of others what she wasn't willing to do herself. Robert watched it all from afar with a silent satisfaction. He had seen many competent professionals over the years, but Maya was different. She had something that wasn't taught in any MBA. She had humanity, and that made all the difference. On a December morning, he called her into his office. The view of the city was particularly beautiful. The sun illuminated the skyscrapers, creating a contrast of light and shadow. "Sit down, Maya." She sat, curious. Robert rarely called her without a specific reason. "I want to talk to you about something important. The company is growing. We're opening a new division focused on corporate social responsibility, companies that want to implement programs for inclusion, diversity, and talent development from underserved communities. It's an expanding market, and I want you to lead that division." Maya blinked, processing the information. "Me? But I've only been with the company for a year and a half, and you've already done more than many do in 10 years. More importantly, you understand this world in a way no one else here does. You've lived through the barriers that so many people face. You know what it means to fight for an opportunity. That authenticity is irreplaceable." Maya felt her chest tighten. It was more than a promotion. It was a chance to do exactly what Eleanor had said, to pave the way for other people, to do for them what no one had done for her. "I accept." Robert smiled, a genuine, warm smile. "I knew you would. You'll have a budget, autonomy, and my full support. Assemble your team, create your projects, make a difference." Maya left that meeting with the feeling of floating, but she didn't waste time. In the following days, she drafted a detailed plan: internship programs for public school youth, partnerships with NGOs working on vocational training, mentorship for entrepreneurs from underserved neighborhoods. Everything thought out with care, with financial viability, but also with real social impact. The first project was launched in March, a tech training program for youth from the South Side and neighboring areas. 30 spots, over 500 applications. Maya participated personally in the interviews. She looked into the eyes of each candidate and saw reflections of herself. The determination, the fear, the hope. Among those selected was a 17-year-old boy named Ray. A resident of the South Side, a public school student, he worked part-time at a grocery store to help his mother. When he received the news that he had been accepted, he cried in front of Maya. "I don't believe it. I really don't believe it." Maya smiled, her own eyes misty. "Believe it, and make the most of every second of this opportunity. I believe it because you're here. If you made it, I can make it too." In that moment, Maya understood the true meaning of everything she had lived through. It wasn't just about her own rise, it was about being the bridge, about showing that it was possible, about inspiring others to believe. The following months were intense. The projects expanded. The social responsibility division of Sterling Consulting began to gain recognition. Companies sought the firm specifically because of that work. And Maya found herself divided between meetings with CEOs and visits to community centers. Between PowerPoint presentations and conversations on front porches, it was exhausting, but it was meaningful. Eleanor followed everything closely. Her recovery had been complete, and the relationship between her and Maya had evolved into something that went beyond gratitude. They were friends, confidants. Eleanor was the grandmother Maya had never had, and Maya was the daughter Eleanor rarely saw in her own son, always so busy with business. On a Saturday in June, Eleanor invited Maya for a special lunch at her home. When Maya arrived, she found not only Eleanor but also Robert, and to her surprise, Mrs. Clara and Jasmine. "What's going on here?" Eleanor smiled, that sweet smile that lit up her whole face. "Sit down, my child, we have something to tell you." Maya sat down, her heart racing. She looked at her mother, who had tears in her eyes but was smiling. Robert was the one who spoke first. "Maya, when you went back that day to help my mother, you didn't imagine the consequences. You didn't just change your own life. You changed mine too. You reminded me of values I had forgotten in the middle of the corporate rush. You made me rethink my priorities, and because of that, my mother and I decided to do something for you. Or rather, for your family." Eleanor picked up an envelope from the table. She handed it to Maya. When she opened it, Maya saw deed documents. It took her a few seconds to process. It was the deed to a house, a 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood in South Shore, in Clara Vance's name. Maya looked at her mother, then at Eleanor, then at Robert. The words wouldn't come out. Eleanor held her hand. "You gave me dignity when I needed it most. You made me feel like I still mattered, that I was still seen. That has no price, but I want your mother to have a safe place, a place of her own, so she can rest a little after a lifetime of work." Maya couldn't hold it in anymore. She cried. She stood up and hugged Eleanor tightly. Then she hugged Robert, then her mother, who was also crying. Mrs. Clara tried to speak through sobs. "My daughter, I don't know what to say. My whole life I asked God for a blessing like this, and it came through you, through your kindness. It wasn't kindness, Mom, it was the right thing. And everything I learned about doing the right thing, I learned from you." Jasmine, who had been quiet until then, joined the group hug. There in that room were 4 women from different generations, united by bonds that went beyond blood, united by gratitude, by respect, by love. Time passed. Maya continued to grow in the company. 2 years after starting as an assistant, she became director of the Social Responsibility Division. Her team grew to 20 people. The projects impacted hundreds of lives a year. Ray, that boy from the South Side, was hired as a junior developer at the firm. Other young people from the program also found opportunities, and every success story was a reminder of why it was all worth it. One night, quite late, Maya was finishing a report when Robert appeared in her office. "Still working?" "Always." He smiled. He entered. He sat in the chair across from her desk. "You know, there's something I never told you. That day when I discovered you were the candidate who had missed the interview, I almost couldn't believe it. I kept thinking about all the coincidences that had to happen for that moment to exist. If the bus hadn't braked, if my mother hadn't fallen, if you hadn't gone back, if I hadn't looked at that resume. So many ifs. And I realized that maybe they weren't coincidences. Maybe it was destiny." Maya smiled. "I don't know if I believe in destiny, but I believe that the choices we make define who we are, and I chose to go back. I chose to help. I chose to do the right thing, even when it was difficult. And that choice changed everything. Not just for you, for my mother, for me, for all the young people who went through your programs. One choice, one moment, and a ripple effect that is still spreading." The two remained in silence for a moment, a comfortable silence of those who shared a unique story. Maya finally saved the document. She turned off the computer. She looked out the window. Down there, the city remained alive. Millions of people, millions of stories, millions of silent battles. Do you know what I learned from all this? That we never know when we are planting a seed. We just do what is right, and we trust. Sometimes the seeds take time to sprout. Sometimes they sprout in ways we never imagined. But they always grow. Robert nodded. "Glad you are planting many seeds, Maya. Many indeed." When Maya left the office that night, she stopped for a moment on the sidewalk of Wacker Drive. She took a deep breath. She looked at the sky, where a few stars could be seen despite the city lights. She thought about everything she had lived through, the difficulties, the victories, the people she had met, the lives she had touched. She thought about that morning, years ago, when she had gotten off a bus to help an unknown elderly lady. She thought about how that decision, which seemed to cost her everything, had in fact given her everything. Because sometimes, losing an opportunity opens doors to greater opportunities. Sometimes doing the right thing when no one is looking is exactly what changes the course of everything. And sometimes, the greatest victories don't come from calculated strategies, but from moments of pure humanity. Maya Vance had proven it was possible, that a girl from the South Side, the daughter of a housekeeper who took 3 transfers to get to work, could become a director at one of the largest consultancy firms in the country. Not by luck, not by favor, but by merit, by character, and by never forgetting where she came from. And most importantly, she had proven that rising didn't mean forgetting those who stayed below. It meant reaching back. It meant opening paths. It meant being the ladder she herself would have liked to find. That night, returning home where her mother and sister waited for her, Maya smiled. A smile of peace, of fulfillment, of gratitude for every obstacle that had strengthened her, for every no that had motivated her, for every person who doubted her and made her prove them wrong. Because in the end, Maya Vance's story wasn't about a lost interview or a conquered career. It was about what happens when kindness meets determination, when integrity meets opportunity, when someone chooses to see the other as a human being, not as an obstacle in the way. It was about how a single gesture of compassion can trigger transformations that go far beyond what any planning could predict. It was about how doing the right thing always eventually leads to the right places. And for all those who still struggle in silence, who still wake up early and return late, who still carry heavy dreams on their shoulders, Maya's story was a reminder that it is worth it, that it is possible, that every choice matters. Because sometimes all we need is one person who believes in us, and sometimes all we need is to be that person for someone else. Dear listeners, we hope that the story of Maya and Mrs. Eleanor has deeply touched your heart. If you were moved by this journey of resilience, kindness, and transformation,